broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth. So welcome back to both of you. There's lots to talk about today. We got into some meaty issues in the last hour, and there's plenty more in the papers that we hadn't touched on then. Martina, you're kicking us off with yesterday's appointment of... the main story is not Angela Rayner buying a stepladder, as you'd think from looking at that. It's actually about the appointment of Lucy Powell as deputy leader of the Labour Party.
That's right, it's the picture right in the corner of Lucy Powell winning the deputy leadership contest. Of course, this is a blow for Keir Starmer, even though they expected it because she had been ahead in the polls of Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson since basically the contest started. But of course, this is not great because she's going to be in the backbenches, so she's not bound by collective responsibility. And every time there's an issue that she doesn't agree with, she's going to say it out loud. And we know that she's a close ally of Andy Burnham, who, I mean, in the last few months, has created quite a lot of hype around him. Just before the Labour conference, there was a lot of talk that he might want to replace Keir Starmer, and then he just backfired because he just went around Labour conference making lots of comments, and they thought he jumped, too quickly.
Moved too quickly.
Moved too quickly. So now we'll see what's going to happen. But, she's already, in the speech that she made yesterday, she was already quite critical.
Yeah, with Keir Starmer sitting there in front of her, former boss.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure that they are quite friendly. They've been in Labour for many years. But Keir Starmer sacked her a month ago, so that must have hurt. She was Commons leader at the time, and she's just, as I mentioned, in her speech, she criticised Keir Starmer for the rhetoric around migration. Now there's a new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, and she wants to change things quite quickly, and she's open to do things that are not very palatable to lots of Labour members. So I reckon that's going to be quite an issue for someone like Lucy Powell.
Yeah, so sort of more tension really in government and more difficulties for Keir Starmer, and he's had a rough run of it recently.
Yeah, I mean, the deputy leader role is kind of more like a chairman of the party role in practical terms.
And yet there's also a chairman of the party.
Indeed, yeah. And so what you heard in that speech yesterday, she was talking about the councillors and the members and the grassroots. And, we see from the polling, as accurate as it can be, that they're quite unhappy with Keir Starmer, they're quite unhappy with the nature of the Labour government. It doesn't feel Labour enough to a lot of members. And so there is a danger there that Lucy Powell can become a focal point for that discontent. And also, in practical terms, you talk about Andy Burnham's very thinly veiled bid to be leader for a third time. He's lost twice before. Now, Lucy Powell is deputy leader, so now she gets a role on the party's executive which can try and get him on a shortlist if there were a by-election. So on a very practical level, this helps Andy Burnham's chances of getting back into Parliament. And I think that's why they were sort of quite closely aligned. I think that this is humiliating to some degree for Keir Starmer because someone that you just sacked now being voted in as deputy leader, and I suspect lots of members did that to send Keir Starmer a message. So the question is, will this adjust the direction of the government?
And I think whenever there's going to be a big announcement that the government does, as a journalist, you will go to the opposition, you might go to Reform, and then you will go to Lucy Powell. She's always going to be that voice, and every announcement she's going to be there to criticise it. So it's going to be the story, really.
But I would just say she's not a big rebel. That's not the nature of Lucy Powell.
I was going to say, now she's in the role, is she more likely to toe the line a bit more, do you think?
I mean, she's been around for a long time. I think she first ran for a Manchester seat in something like 2005. She lost twice, and then she ran Ed Miliband's Labour leadership campaign, which was successful. And so she's a real party person, a machine person. So I doubt that she's going to be quite as provocative as even Angela Rayner was, but you wonder whether the pulling the levers behind the scenes could have the real effect.
I'm not so sure because, for instance, she's already spoken about the two-child benefit cap, again, migration in this case, and there's lots of issues that I think might become, as we see a Keir Starmer trying to do more things to get Reform voters on, that she's not going to like it.
Let's turn to the front of the Sunday Times, and there's a comment by Wes Streeting about the Caerphilly by-election and their terrible loss in the Welsh parliamentary by-election on Friday, which put them down to 11% in traditional Labour heartlands.
And this was incredibly damaging. And I don't know, actually, if it would have been better for Reform to win, because it was kind of expected that Reform would do well, and Reform did come second and Labour third. But in this case, I think it quite shocked the government and Downing Street people, because you're seeing that Labour is not only losing voters to the right, but they're losing it to the left as
This
well.
is Plaid Cymru, we should say, that
Plaid
won
Cymru,
the
yeah,
seat.
yeah, of course. But if you apply that nationally and in English constituencies as well, with the Greens doing quite well in the polls, you could see something quite catastrophic happening.
And what do you make of the fact that West Streeting's compared this to the Hartlepool moment? Because this was a loss of a by-election where Keir Starmer said he considered resigning. I mean, what's West Streeting saying? He's not hinting at that, is he?
No, but I think it's quite a clever way to frame it, because Keir Starmer has talked about how, as you say, he nearly resigned after that disastrous by-election loss. But then, of course, famously, evidently, he pulled it back to get about the joint biggest landslide in Labour history. And so I think West Street is quite clever to compare it to that, because it says this is an inflection moment from which we know he can bounce back.
Got you.
And so I think he's trying to rally people around it in that sense. But the danger is, you know, the split of the vote in, you know, five-way constituencies becoming more common than not. It's going to throw up these results.
Very briefly, because we've only got a minute, and I really want to get into it on fat jabs. I've just spotted the story. This is fat jab users flock to the gym to bulk up.
That's right. Well, they thought that people after the fat jab, they would not go to the gym anymore, but instead they are. And I think it's a very positive thing, of course, and I think people might feel a bit more comfortable in their own skin, and that's why they decide to go to the gym.
Yeah, because some people are nervous about going to the gym because if they feel overweight and uncomfortable being in that environment.
Oh, I hate it. I hate it, because you've got these people that sort of, I'm not, but obsessively hard, you know, gym fit and all the rest of it, and you just feel self-conscious. This is quite motivating, because the big fear was that people would use the jabs and not use the other healthy lifestyle habits that are good for you. This suggests that it sort of sets people on a path of better behaviour. So, you know, let's hope so, because it will save the government a fortune in the NHS as well.
Yeah, that's so true.
We need that.
Probably won't get me in the gym, though. Anyway, that's another subject. Lovely to see you both this morning. Thanks so much.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories.
This is insane.